right, I think I got all the windows written down, right? 80 by 96, 43 by 72, 72 by 70, 72 wide, 70 tall, and that is it. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. In this video, we're going to go through some basic wall layout. And one of the first things you need to do with basic wall layout is pick decent material for your plates. As you have seen from previous videos, we build a lot of rake walls. So I typically will just order a whole unit of 16-foot 2x6 Doug fir. I get my plates and I get my tall studs out of that. What I am doing right here is I'm tacking two of them together with a 16-penny sinker, and I'm going to cut it exactly 16 foot. The reason for that is whether I do 16 on center layout or 24-inch on center layout, they both land right there at 16 foot. Always clean up as you go. Now this back wall is 64 feet long. So since I'm at the pile, I'm just going to grab 3 different sets, tack them together, cut them exactly 16 foot. What this does for me is it allows me to restart my stud layout with the layout stick and or verify my stud layout. This guy has been great, no complaints. It is accurate, and I will prove that to you because some of you are skeptics, I can understand that. They have a brand new version. So they sent this to me last week, good timing because I just had some walls to lay out. It's just that I can take the tabs off. So for example, we're framing 24 on center, then I'm just not even gonna use the 16 on center tabs. That way there's no confusion. There can only be one Highlander reference. Essentially every 16 foot. Sometimes, depending on the walls, I'll use 20 footers. It all depends on the house. In fact, I used to order only 20 footers for plates because I would get bigger cutoffs, which could be used for windowsills, window packages, or other small walls. Quite frankly, it just got too heavy for me, so I ordered 16 footers. This is probably my favorite tool. It's the 10 1/4 inch Makita XGT. Did you ever think we would have cordless beam saws? I did not. Okay, 10 foot splits me on a stud, minus 5.5. Still splits me on a stud, but pulls the other end in out of the way. I mentioned that the back wall is 64 feet. Well, technically, that is an increment of 16 foot. So why did I cut those plates 10 foot minus 5.5? I'm so glad you asked. Because this wall, even though we're framing it first, we're going to lift it up and out of the way, it needs to butt my rake wall on each end. By cutting that first plate 10 feet, it offsets the top plate measurement so that that does not land on a split on my wall sheathing. I don't think this is probably a big deal, but I just went ahead and offset it. I'm always looking for ways to keep a big wall like this as stiff as possible when we go to lift it. You'll see later that we're going to go ahead and add our soffit to it. That's going to help quite a bit. But anyway, that just explains why it is that it was a 10-foot plate, and then I needed to subtract 5.5 inches. It's because it needs to butt that exterior wall. Here is a question for you fellow framers and or tradespeoples. Do you have a beam saw? Which beam saw is it? Please post below. I cannot recommend this Makita enough. It is outstanding. It's actually less weight than the old Skill. What was that, like the 77? HD 77, something like that. When I was 15, it's a good thing I lifted a lot of weights when I was a kid. That was a heavy saw. This saw here is about 14 pounds, so it's like the Mag LT. Anyway, I digress. We've been using beam saws since 2002. We put a Bigfoot Tools adapter on an old Skill. Then we realized we needed another saw, so we bought another one, and then we bought one with a swing table, so we could bevel all the way to 75 degrees. Anyway, this is just kind of curious. Okay. I absolutely love the beam saw. I did retro. In fact, here's a bad story. I had an 8 1/4 inch skill saw that I ground and removed the guard, ground the base plate so we could use a 9-inch blade, and then we could cut double plates like this. Somebody actually threw that in the trash to save me from myself when I was younger. Danny, I owe you one, buddy. 66.5. Here's another pro tip for you. Always keep track of your scrap mentally. I knew that by cutting 10 footers, I would have about 6 foot left. Well, here, I got to take 5.5 off of that anyway, plus the extra that was, 16 footers aren't 16 footers. They're a little more. I'm tacking all of my plates together, by the way, because this is going to guarantee our alignment when we lay out. I use a 16 penny nail because it's easier to pull with the side nail puller on the Martinez hammer. They used to use 8s, but the heads just break off of those Galby 8s. Anyway, get rid of your scrap. And look at the hook on that saw. Oh man, I just love it. I just love it. Okay, let's get into the layout.
Okay. Okay, this is easy. Those matches below, eventually matches below, but it's not framed downstairs. 7'6", outside to center, 80 by 96. .6", outside to center. Outside to center, burning 5.5. 7'6", 80. So half of that is 40.
In case you were wondering, that is the Pika Dry, I think large, or the Pika Dry XL, something like that. It's a marking tool. It's not like your regular carpenter's pencils, which always break, and they're pretty poor quality. It works really well on wet wood, and so that's why I like it. I also have one of these big Sharpies. It's supposed to be able to write on wet wood. I don't find it works that great. Works great enough. And I like to mark my windows in Sharpie because it's easier for us to see once we tack it to the line. We always start framing with our windows and doors first and fill in around that. It just leaves us more access, like when we're nailing king stud and trimmers and headers to the king stud, etc., or king studs and jacks for those of you in certain parts of the country. It's just easier to see.
Okay, 43 by 72. No, that's perfect. There's center of key. Wow. Okay. Center of key. This is plenty close enough.
Just as far as the nomenclature, so to speak, X for me is a stud or a king stud. I don't mark Ks. So X is the king stud, T is for trimmer or jack stud. We call them trimmers. I think the code actually calls them jack studs.
Okay, 43 by 72. .43.
It's good. You got that torch in your hand? Turn your oxygen all the way on, and your acetylene bottle.
43 by 72.
Like me, you might be wondering, why is the rough opening 43 by 72? I don't remember. We are partnering with Initech Windows out of British Columbia on this job. They are extremely high-performance windows. Oh, I'm going to do a factory tour and go into another video in the future. In fact, on the 27th of this month, we'll be up there. Suffice to say, these are probably the highest quality windows that are available to us, and we'll explain what the advantages are to us and to the homeowner, future homeowner, in a future video. They're extremely heavy, so we've all been just hitting the gym, just lifting weights to get ready for these things.
Thank you, sir. Okay. And 72 by 70. Going to be matching this guy.
This house, the designer really did have the lower windows directly matching the upper windows. Now, about half of this back wall will get interrupted by a deck. I remember when I was first taught layout, and when you take a look at the elevation, you can skip the tape measure. So as long as I did the layout on the first floor correctly, then I should just be able to match that, right? So that's what I'm doing. By putting the plates closer to the black line, squaring off of it, it's actually going to be square. Does it matter? No, it does not. I am a big believer in knowing when tolerances matter, but I'm also a big believer in when it's super easy, like it was right there. You might as well just make it match perfectly.
70.
Incidentally, your plans hopefully will tell you how many trimmer or jack studs you need. Ours usually don't. I just get into the code book. For us, typically once we get over 5 foot or over 5'6", that's when I double them up.
Here we have window, windows, windows. Nothing but studs.
This is the Bigfoot layout stick. I have been using layout sticks for 20 years. I still have one. I'll show you a picture of it. This is all the way from 2006.
Okay. So
We were using them from before. However, Bigfoot made this adjustable one. Notice that I have the tabs for 16-inch on center. I just have those stored out of the way because we're framing 24-inch on center.
Hey, look at that. That's right on there. Let's just start over. So to the right.
My method is I lay out my windows and doors first, then I lay out my studs, then I lay out my partitions because oftentimes the stud lands kind of where the partition is. I'll show you that in just a moment. You might be thinking to yourself, well, you don't save a whole lot of time. Sure I do. I save time going up and down the wall with a tape measure. Does it save a lot of time? Not in a one-off. What about accumulated error? This is why I cut my plates at 16 foot. I just reset. It don't matter. What was that, 1/8 of an inch? It's all about methodology. Don't get hung up on, oh, well, you're going to introduce accumulated error. Well, you could, but you saw on my first plates, I had 0. On the second set of plates, I had 1/8. Because, you know, we were adding the thickness of the pencil line, right?
Look at that, right on the money.
1/16 of an inch, who cares? Now, technically my layout started from the left side of the building, so let's check it. Just how close were we? I bet you we were pretty close. Close enough.
Burn 5.5. Center 21 1/16. Okay, so every other stud is a 4x.
I'm going to start a weekly rant series on Instagram soon, but here's an abbreviated version of that rant. We only need to be as accurate as we need to be for each given task. Okay? A 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. Just know where it matters and where it doesn't matter. Now, what I'm doing here is we are using Zip R, which is the 7/16 zip panel that is bonded to 1 inch of polyiso foam, because here in Washington State, we're going to start being required to have continuous insulation on the outside of the building. Now, because we're in seismic zone D2, we have to worry about earthquakes. We have to nail these panels 3 inches on center at the perimeter, which requires 3x studs. I could not source 3x studs, but I could source 4x. So that's what I'm doing here, 4x studs.
Okay.
It means we won't miss anything when we're nailing them. It's pretty awesome. And because we are focused on insulation, we use a 2-stud corner. We call them partitions. They're not partitions. They're not channels. We always call them California corners. So I marked the 3.5 representing my wall. But here's what represents that partition. Stud on the side and then a stud flat, and that way insulation can get tucked in.
And this other guy will leave out. Okay.
And now it is time for you to do me a favor. It's huge. It's a huge favor. Comment below on some of your favorite layout tricks. Do you prefer center marks, side marks? What tools do you use? Do you have a mechanical pencil or a keel you really like? Just share. Share, share, share. You know, like the singer, except not. Anyway, thank you very much for following along. Please hit that like and subscribe button. There's a look at the wall. You notice every other stud's 4x, single ply LVL headers. We held the zip R up. That is going to nail into our bird blocks. We notched it for the rafters. That is all subjects for future videos. So hit that like and subscribe button. Share this with all of your friends. I love you all, and we'll see you in the next video.